So a lot of antisocial behaviour is going to be going on tonight because that's just the way of the world now in Halloween. And if you're not careful, you'll get your house covered in eggs because some yobbos will decide to throw them at you. Let's talk to Norman Brennan, former London police officer, of course, a man who knows a thing or two about antisocial behaviour. I'm going to talk to you first off about Ben Stokes, the cricketer who had his home raided by a masked gang while he was away playing cricket in Pakistan. And unfortunately for his family, his wife and his kids were in the house at the same time. This seems to be something that's happening more and more, Norman.
Yes, good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
It is. Yeah, it's called aggravated burglary. It's where you enter a property with a weapon, an imitation firearm or a firearm. It's at the very serious end of burglary. And as you rightly say, a number of football stars, cricket stars, people see on social media when they're going to be away from their homes, when they're away from their country, as Ben Stokes was actually in Pakistan.
Yeah.
So whoever broke in knew that it probably would have been his wife and his children there. And the reason why people, when they commit an aggravated burglary, which is the most serious type, is they like people to be on the premises so they can tell them where the money, jewellery and anything else is. And it's one of the most frightening burglaries as well, because you're actually in the premises at the time. Threats are used, often violence is used, and it leaves lifelong trauma. And unfortunately, the security was probably as good as it could be. Football stars nowadays, they almost have resident security guards. Ben clearly didn't, and rightly so. He's got his wife and his children there.
Exactly right, and it's a terrible dilemma for someone like him who spends a lot of his time abroad, because he must be now a guy thinking whenever he's away, goodness me, you know, what am I going to do to make sure that my wife and kids are safe?
Well, it could have been a lot worse, but it's as bad enough as it is. Every time he goes away now, as you rightly say, he should be concentrating on his cricket, which is an outstanding cricket player. He's the England captain. Knowing that his wife and his family are safe. Well, of course, what's he going to be thinking about now every time he goes away? And is he going to think about leaving the country? Now, nobody should be living in that situation. But the trouble is, Mike, is that we've got a Britain nowadays with a criminal justice system that's completely broken. It's out of control. We don't see the police. And even when these suspects are arrested, they could wait 2 or 3 years before they're actually given any justice, and the family are given justice. So they've got 2 or 3 weeks of years of trauma waiting for a trial to come up. And that's very telling on people's lives and welfare. Sometimes they're frightened to go out. It really is that bad. And the trouble is, crime is so out of control that we don't seem to care about crime anymore. And criminals don't seem to care about being caught because they know the chances are very low. And even if they are caught, they'll be out of prison pretty quickly. Yeah,
and this lot have got away with all sorts of things, including his OBE medal, which he got in 2020, you know, some expensive jewellery, a Christian Dior bag. I mean, it's a terrible violation as well. I mean, I know because it's happened to me when you have a house burglary or an office burglary. I had my office burgled when I was in New York 3 times in a week. And by the end of the 3rd time, I'd hired a guy with a gun. I was like, if this bloke comes back, wait for him, because I'm going to shoot him myself. You know, you start to go insane after a while.
Well, you do, and as you rightly say, I mean, Tamara Ecclestone, she was a victim of a burglary. Wasn't as in this bracket because there was no one there. £8 million worth of goods she has. Now, you can say these people are rich. Well, that's absolutely nothing to do with it. Many of these people have worked hard all their lives, like Ben has. He's built a career, and he's an outstanding candidate for the cricket industry. So he's entitled to have his MBE, to have his money and have his goods. And he's not entitled for somebody to come along, these toe rags, to break into his property, threaten his wife and his children, and steal all that he's worked hard for. And who actually cares, Mike? Who actually cares? Because nobody seems to care about victims anymore. We seem to care more about the offender. And these people, they hit the headlines. Today, something else will happen, but tomorrow, Ben and his family will still suffer trauma that they've been suffering the last few weeks.
Exactly. Shocking. A quick question for you on Halloween, Norman, because I imagine for the police, Halloween's become a bit more troublesome than it used to be. I mean, when I was a kid, because my parents were Scottish, we used to go round to our neighbours and sort of get dressed up as witches and whatever. But nowadays, I mean, I'm seeing houses bedecked with all sorts of Halloween gear. You get people going out trick-or-treating. You get yobbos throwing eggs at people. I mean, it must be a bit of a bad night for the cops.
Oh, every time it is now. There doesn't seem to be, excuse me, there doesn't seem to be any bank holiday now where the police are not attacked even. There'd be firework night coming up. People love the sport of firing rockets at police officers when they're called to the original call.
Yeah.
And antisocial behaviour is the biggest blight in Britain at this moment in time.
Yeah.
It affects hundreds of thousands of people. They don't see the police on the streets, so those that actually act antisocially are not challenged. And even when they are, Mike, yet again, there's no deterrent, there's no punishment, so they think they can behave as and when badly as they like, and nobody does anything about it. So unfortunately, those that are going out tonight, I wish them all the best. Those that are staying in, I wish you some safety, because that's probably the best place to be.
Yeah, absolutely right. Norman, thanks very much indeed. Norman Brennan, former London police officer there. It is Halloween. I'm not trying to be a killjoy here, by the way. I'm just saying to people, you know, the world has changed. It doesn't seem to me to be necessary to have your house adorned with all sorts of Halloween guff. What's the point of that exactly? It's literally one night. A bit like, you know, when people do Christmas decorations around the house, that's because Christmas is a kind of a season. Halloween's one night. Why would you even bother? And also, if you're going to go out trick-or-treating and throwing eggs at people and troubling the police, you shouldn't bother doing that either,